Over Thomas's long run on television, there have been many feature-length films made. A large portion of these are quite disappointing, but there are also some greats. You can't deny films like Sodal's Legend of the Lost Treasure and The Adventure Begins aren't masterpieces. Whilst I love these films, there is one that sticks out to me a lot more than the others, and that film is Tale of the Brave. When Andrew Brenner became head writer for Thomas in 2013, his first film was King of the Railway. Whilst this film isn't extremely exciting, it demonstrates good character writing and growth, in comparison to what had been released in previous years. But back in 2013 it felt amazing to be a Thomas fan. It really felt like the show was on the up and something new was here to stay. In 2014 the film Tale of the Brave was released and is my personal favourite Thomas and Friends film. There are many reasons as to why I think the film works so well. Firstly, let's dive into the characters. Tale of the Brave followed the same three characters as King of the Railway, that being Thomas, Percy and James. Percy has the highlight spot here, but all three are very present. Let's talk about Percy first. I have never been a big fan of Percy's scaredy personality. It always felt overused and pointless. However, for this film, I think Percy has a valid reason. After seeing Thomas being frightened, it causes him to enter a state of paranoia, and with James causing more problems for Percy, it results in this broken down character. Percy is not only scared in this film, but he's also cross that no one believes him. The new character Gator is the one to bring him out of his shell, and eventually Percy has to face his most dangerous moment yet, to save the engine who has been bullying him. This is really good character growth for Percy and one of the first times we've seen him come full circle. Day of the Diesels tried to do something like this, but failed as Percy never actually stands up for himself, he just gets everyone to help him. Don't get me wrong, Percy does have his moments of anger in this film too, and that's really neat. He's not simply going to take your apology, he needs to let the dust settle first. James is pretty horrible in this movie. He's always been that vain engine that's pretty delusional, but in this film he lets all of that go straight to his head, and rather than thinking he's better than Percy, he straight up bullies him for days. This includes making his own scrap monster and trying to prove a point to Percy at the clay pits that he's not scared, but he does it in this jerky way. Now this being a Thomas movie, of course James gets his comeuppance and learns he was in the wrong, but I do love this side of James, he's just so brutal. This trope of James did become a regular occurrence for the rest of the CGI series, but it was never this aggressive. James does try to apologise, but due to Percy not forgiving him, this makes him more irritated. Thomas, on the other hand, is the most adult we have ever seen him. Prior to this in the CGI series, Thomas was the idiot engine who always caused issues and tried to redeem himself. But in this film he is very mature. He spooks himself initially, but enters a state of denial as he knows there's no such thing as monsters. Without proof, he can't admit to the other engines what he saw. He doesn't want to lie to them, and he doesn't want to lie to Percy. It's that sort of older brother relationship the two have here. It's also nice seeing Thomas give James a telling off. He's come a long way from when he used to play tricks. But obviously Thomas's highlight scene is the one to stop the ship. This scene is just so impactful. The direction, the voice acting, the animation and music is all amazing. Both Ben Small and Martin Sherman do an amazing job for this scene and really go full out. I wonder if that's because both knew this would be their final film voicing these characters. I'm not too sure. Thomas shows a state of panic here and knows the dangers, but Cranky puts his trust into Thomas, knowing it's important to stop the ship. It also demonstrates that if Thomas hadn't been in a panic, he would have got a simple answer, that Percy had decided against his plan. There were a few new characters in this special, but the two highlights are Gator and Marion. Marion is a really lovable character in this film, but has her spotlight in next year's special. She has her fun moments and ultimately saves Percy, but she doesn't do much more other than really being the comic relief with Bill and Ben. The other two characters, Reg and Timothy, really don't do much, and they don't do all that much for the rest of the show, but I'll briefly talk about Gator. Gator has this charm that Percy warms to. He's this calm and cool guy who learns to overcome any obstacles. Percy tries following in his footsteps, but ends up inevitably getting Gator's message wrong, resulting in him learning the true meaning of being brave is learning how to approach these issues, rather than running away. Gator's very fatherly in this special, and I really like what they did with him in season 18 as well, allowing him to have a few episodes to build Percy's arc. I know a lot of characters used to appear in specials never to be seen again, but Gator was one of the few in which I enjoyed this approach. It was always how it was meant to be for him. Some things just can't stay forever. The main thing I absolutely adore about this film is what the engines are doing when they're talking to each other. This is the one film that isn't driven by a special train or event. The engines are just doing their normal jobs. It's just another day on the railway, and these events are happening around them. You see Thomas working at the clay pits, then on his branch line, Percy pulls the mail, and James has his goods trains. They're not wandering off Sodor or anything like that. These engines are just doing their jobs, and I really love that. It shows that when the engines are having these conversations, nothing exciting is happening, but the dialogue is engaging enough. Andrew Brenner really did a great job with the pacing and dialogue for this one. There are also some really touching moments in this film. The apologies at the end feel well earned, and Gator's departure is sad. There is no "I'll see you next time" from either character. They are saying so long to each other. Some other positives I'd like to highlight over it is how good the music is in this film. I know in Lost Treasure Robert and Peter Hartshorne did a fantastic job, but this film has some really nice calm music throughout, but you also have those tense, spooky and climatic scores. The voice acting is also at its highest in this film. This was the last of the CGI films to use the original cast. Soon Lost Treasure came about and we had a new cast playing the main characters. They all did such a fantastic job for their final showdown. Whilst I love this film, I do understand some of the backlash it receives. It is quite a disjointed film. You start with what appears to have Thomas as the main character, and move into this new story with Percy. Both King of the Railway and Tale of the Brave face these issues. However, I do feel Tale of the Brave is less disjointed than King of the Railway. For example, if Percy had been the one to discover the footprints, there would have been no reason for him to act brave, as due to his stereotypical personality, this just would not have made sense for his character. But the main reason you feel the story is disjointed is that the film tries to focus on each of the three characters for a certain period of time. I feel like if characters like Reg or Timothy weren't included in this film, there would be a lot more runtime to focus on the climax. I honestly feel Tale of the Brave may have worked well as just a 6-part story. Like how Series 1 had this overarching plot, this film would have worked just as good in that format. There is something that just works so well for Tale of the Brave for me, and I feel it isn't discussed enough. The characters, pacing and tone is really solid, and everything comes together in this neat package. None of the characters feel out of line necessarily, and I always have a little smile on my face when I see them interacting. I understand why people don't talk about this film all that much now, and that's because The Adventure Begins came out just a few months after, and then we had Lost Treasure as well. I find it mad that there was a time of being a Thomas fan when we had 3 really solid films come out all in one go. Tale of the Brave to me always feels like it could have been a film made during the model series, around Series 5 time. Heck, I would have loved, instead of Magic Railroad, we got this in model form. The characters in this film really feel like their old selves. They're friends, but they can't get on at the best of times. If you haven't revisited this film in some time, I highly recommend returning to it. It's a fun story with a lot of heart and soul. Who knows, you might have forgotten how much you loved this hidden gem. Thank you all so much for watching. We finally made it to 8,000 subscribers on the channel, and I think we did that in 3 months. I can't thank you enough for sticking around and enjoying these new videos I've been putting out. It really does mean the world. As per usual, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing or even leaving a like and a comment. It really does help the channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.